Are you serious? Are you serious? We have breaking news out of the Middle East. I want to thank Penny of Virginia for this report. But John F. Kerry, the Secretary of State, is returning to the Middle East. He's going to return next week on the peace agreement. I got some powerful information on it. Let me read to you one verse from the Bible before I read this report on the status of the covenant with many as prophesied in the Bible. But here's what the scripture says in Daniel chapter 9:27. This is a milestone, a biblical milestone that is so huge, spoken of by Jesus in Matthew 24 verse 15, and then explained by the Apostle Paul in 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Here's what Daniel said he saw. He said, and he, this is Daniel 9:27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week or 7 years. And in the midst of the week, or 3.5 years, or 42 months, and those dates, those amount of time are mentioned throughout the Bible in different references to this week. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week or 7 years, and in the midst of the week, or 3.5 years, or 42 months, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. In other words, the temple, to have the abomination of desolation, you have to have a temple built so that the Antichrist can walk into the temple of God before the worshipers of God and declare that he is God, and to cease the worship there and to commit the abomination of desolation. Now, let's talk about it. But before that can happen, before you get a temple, before you can have an abomination of desolation, which is when the Antichrist reveals himself to the world, you have to have a covenant. And folks, they are getting ready to go into the 6th month of the negotiations of this covenant. They started the negotiations, sat down at the table for the first time in 5 years, looked across the table at one another on July the 30th, 2013. And they have made a ton of progress. And they're very close to signing a framework agreement. And then they could go away and take about 3 months or so to finish out the details. And of course, the devil is always in the details. Well, hang on a second. Are you serious? Get a cup of coffee or some tea or something. Here's what's going on. The United States Secretary of State, John F. Kerry, will return to the Middle East next week. Palestinian sources are reporting today, Saturday, December 28, 2013, on the Sabbath. Kerry will hold talks on the peace process with Palestinian and Israeli officials, according to a Palestinian official. The visit will come shortly after Israel's scheduled release of a third group of Palestinian prisoners. Remember, when they first sat down, the first time they sat down, Israel, with good faith, said, okay, we'll let 26 prisoners that have been convicted of murdering Jews, we'll let them go free. Then after they negotiated about 3 months, Israel said, okay, a show of good faith, we'll let another wave of 26 prisoners go free. Now, on the end of the 6 months, Israel, show of good faith, is going to release another 26 prisoners. And that will leave just 26 more to go, folks. And they will let them go at the signing of the covenant with many. That will be a total of 104 prisoners. And 104 is a holy number for Muslims because they believe they have 104 holy books within their religious faith. Just for reference, President Barack Obama signed that I-beam that come flying off one of the World Trade Centers on 9/11. He signed the I-beam that was replaced in the brand new One World Trade Center, and they put that I-beam. He signed it with the scriptures of Isaiah 9:10, the harbinger scriptures that Messianic Rabbi Jonathan Cahn wrote about. And guess where they put the I-beam? What floor they put it on? What? You're right. The 104th floor. Why that floor? It wasn't the top, wasn't the bottom. Why 104? What significance did it have with American history? None. But it has everything to do with Islamic faith. Now, let me read on. So, that's why 104 prisoners are going to be let go as a good sign of faith by Israel. Now, the visit will come shortly after Israel's scheduled release of the third group of Palestinian prisoners and amid a row over reported plans by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to authorize construction of 1,400 homes over the pre-1967 Green Line. 600 of them homes will be in Jerusalem. 800 of those homes will be in West Bank settlements. Now, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has urged the U.S. to block these plans of these settlements. Kerry has told the Palestinian Authority he will return to the region on January the 4th. So John F. Kerry is going back January 4th to discuss the peace process and negotiations with Israel, according to the officials are quoting. Ahead of his upcoming visit, Kerry is expected to present both sides with a written framework agreement for resolving the long-standing conflict between them, while unveiling Palestinian demands for a final deal. He's going to bring an agreement, a framework agreement. He's bringing a written framework agreement to be signed, to try to get both sides to sign the framework. Now, last week, the Arab League Assistant Secretary General Mohammed Shabia said that Abbas and other Arabic officials revealed to an Arab League meeting to foreign ministers that Kerry would present the plan on New Year's Eve, folks, December 31st, 2013. That's why you don't want to miss our New Year's Eve live broadcast. I do it every year. This will be my third time in a row. And the first year I did it, 6,000 blackbirds fell out of the sky in Beebe, Arkansas. That was the second time that had happened in Beebe, Arkansas. It happened during my live broadcast. Last year, I received a prophecy from the Lord, 12 prophecies for the year 2014. It was revealed right on the spot live, and they have come to pass miraculously. You can read those at my website. This year, what's going to happen? We got meteorites right now. We just had a massive meteorite that was viewed there in Iowa. There was another one seen up in Minnesota. There was another one seen over in Missouri. There is things going on in the heavens, and we know these were prophesied by the prophet Joel. So, and then they're going to be dropping the framework. Now, they're not going to sign it on New Year's Eve, I don't think, but they're going to hand them the framework before Kerry gets there. That way, these Arabic nations and the Israelis have 5 days, 4 or 5 days to review it before Kerry gets there on January 4th. Abbas told the meeting that he would not respond to John Kerry's proposal immediately, but would instead present it to the Arabic countries in order to come to a joint decision. See, this is a covenant with many. Read it again. Daniel 9:27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice. In other words, it's a 7-year agreement. But he will confirm it with many. So like I've been saying, it's not just Israel and Palestine signing this. It's not just President Obama, Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority, and Benjamin Netanyahu. It's not just John Kerry in there with his John Hancock in there. No, there's going to be the Arabic League nations, all 23 of them or 22 of them. You've got the Vatican. The Pope is going to sign off. You've got the British Empire. You've got the Americans. You're going to have the European Union. that's going to sign off on this thing. It's going to include, I mean, come on, somebody. You know, the Chinese and the Russians have to go along with this. This is huge. This is biblical milestone. Jesus said, when you see this, the abomination spoken by Daniel. Are you serious? What? Are you serious? Now, wait a minute. Hang on. Now, Abbas said that he was going to show it to the other Arabic countries. Many of the demands of Mahmoud Abbas is said to be making for a permanent accord, meanwhile run counter to the reported Israeli requirements for a deal. Of course, they're not there yet. But Israel has been demanding that the Palestinian Authority recognize Israel as a Jewish state, for instance, which Abbas says he refuses to do, according to the report. Israel has also insisted upon continued presence of Israeli troops in the Jordan Valley. Abbas would not agree to even one Israeli soldier on the Palestinian-Jordan border, but that he would be open, though, to an international force stationed there, something that Netanyahu was rejecting. And that international force would be made up of Americans and a few other countries. Now, Abbas would consent to a 3-year Israeli military withdrawal process, though, for these territories along the Jordan Valley, according to an agreed-upon timeline. Israel had asked for 10 years. So you see, this thing is, they're framing this thing up. It's the devil's in the details. We know it. And Israel really doesn't want to sign this covenant because their covenant's with God. And they were even told not to make a covenant with their enemies. But because of the pressure by the Americans, by the Obama administration, by David Cameron and the British, by the Germans, by the Russians, by the Chinese, by the Vatican, there's so much, by the Arab League, by the EU, that Benjamin Netanyahu has been forced in a corner because dangling over his head is nuclear annihilation from Iran, which all of these countries are telling Netanyahu, you sign this deal, we'll give you billions of dollars, we'll give you protection and security, and we will shut down Iran's nuke program. But if you don't sign this deal, all bets are off, and we'll let Iran keep doing what they got to do. And then you just work it out. That is the situation. You got to understand. And God knew that Israel would be forced in a corner and would have to conform to an agreement they don't want. But God's not going to hold Israel really accountable for that agreement. They will have to pay a price for it. It says it right there in Zechariah chapter 12. That's how come Jerusalem becomes a cup of trembling and a burdensome stone. But it also says in Zechariah 14 that Israel will be invaded and even half the city will fall again. But then the Lord will win the battle. There is a price to pay for this agreement, but Israel will sign it, and God knows it. That's why it's prophesied by Daniel, spoken of by Jesus, prophesied, and explained by Paul in Thessalonica. Can I go on? Do you want to get the whole thing? But the people who's really going to pay the price are the Americans for driving this thing home so hard, and the British for backing it up, and the Vatican for also egging it on, and the EU for their manipulation, and the Arab League. All of these nations are going to pay a great price for participating in forcing a coveted land being divided. You can mark my words when I tell you this. The covenant's going to get done, and the price to pay will follow. Now, here's what Paul said about this agreement. An abomination, and the temple. He says these words in 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with a child, and they shall not escape. Now, if you also just turn to page of 2 Thessalonians, I'm almost out of time. But here's what he says about the Antichrist. He says, let no man deceive you. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And how's that going to happen? He will stand in that temple and declare that he is God. I'm out of time on this video. I got to go. But let me tell you, give your life to Jesus Christ. Something biblical is going on.